Welcome along to Fuji International Speedway for Japan Cup race number 2. We're leading to the midpoint of the championship after racing in Sugo in the middle of May. It's now the middle of July and we're getting our GT3 cars ready for some fantastic race action around one of the most favourite racetracks here in Japan. No such scenes of the Mount Fuji today, unfortunately, with cloud cover over the last couple of days. But the samurais are out to protect the grid and also to fight with each other. Festival feeling down on the grid, as we had in race number 2 of GT World Challenge Asia. The local Gotemba drummers behind and the samurai putting on their special demonstration. Generally, the samurais usually from the military and protecting the local noblemen around the area. Here is the circuit, 4.5 kilometers in length, 16 turns in total, a GT3 record of 137, although we are about a second back from that back in 2018. It's a circuit that's been used every single year of SRO's involvement in racing here in Japan. And of course, the Japan Cup itself, a third year as a standalone championship. Before it was part of GT World Challenge Asia. And now with so many cars, so much need to go racing, thanks to SRO, it has its own championship. A very unique Sector 3 and a very long start and finish straight are the big characteristics of this Toyota-owned circuit. Let's take a look at what happened yesterday in race 1. We had a slightly brighter sky for the afternoon race, and heading down into turn number 1, Hamaguchi in the Lamborghini with the pole position, but Uematsu looking down the inside to try and take the lead away. It was a squeeze through turn number 1, and in the end, the Audi in the background getting caught out and losing loads of position as it skated along the raised curbs. Ponos Racing challenging Max Racing in the first couple of laps, but once the Max Racing team got their head down, they started challenging Uematsu in the McLaren in the first part of the race. Then this contact between number 1 and number 19 deemed to be the Lamborghini's fault, and in the end Lamborghini would continue, both of them would be out with damage. The Lamborghini being given a 5-place grid penalty for today for that contact. Post pit stops, post success penalties from Sugo, the field was rather mixed up, and Kenta Yamashita in the 88 McLaren set about getting more and more comfortable with the car, which he'd only just driven for the first time on the Thursday before Sugo, but with that extra experience he set off into the distance. Great battle between the Max Racing Mercedes and the AWD Audi. That kept us entertained, but out front, Yamashita with a healthy advantage to take victory in the first race. A first victory for McLaren in Asia, a brand new victor in the Japan Cup overall, although of course we've seen Uematsu quite often on the AM podium, and all smiles at Miracolo Tokyo. Once again, this beautiful Lamborghini Countach on the front of the grid. Absolutely stunning reimagination, I imagine, thanks to Bingo Racing, which has a incredible showroom in Tokyo full of special cars. And we are going to now join Hana, who is down on the grid, and she is going to speak to some of our leading contenders.
We always love to see a GTR, GT3 on the grid. 今日のレースは何想像してますか？
そうですね。 無事に安全に帰ってこれるように、はい、走りたいと思ってます。
頑張ってください。GTR のストロングポイントはどこですか？
そうですね、ダウンフォースが結構あるので、セクター2まではすごい速いと思うんです。セクター3頑張りたいと思います。
頑張ってください。ありがとうございます。So they want to make sure that they are having a really good sector 3 so that they can get a fast straight line speed down this very long straight. She's going to do her best as well. Thank you.
Galar up for the fight today. Front row of the grid for that Nissan Nismo GTR. There's the flag bearers that I was telling you about. Flying that flag all weekend long. It's up and down and up and down. There is no pause for the flag flyers. They're going to have a big fight though with the #1 Cornes Racing Ferrari, our champions from last year. It's going to be Kawabata who will start the car, of course, the pro drivers starting, and he'll have his hands full with Natsu Sakaguchi starting the Galar Racing Nissan. Very strong down the main straight is the Nissan. And slightly cooler conditions today with that big cloud cover. It still doesn't feel cool though, 26 degrees and humidity up at 70%. We were forecast rain, but the rain has not come. And so we have, I think, going to be putting the wet tyres away. It's just very, very humid. Let's have a chat now with our pole sitter, Kawabata.
Car #1, last year's champions and pole sitter, 川端選手、昨日の接触を振り返ってどんなレースになると思いますか？
はい、昨日はトップ走行中に、アクシデントに巻き込まれてリタイアになっちゃったので、今日はその鬱憤をすべて晴らしたいと思います。はい、
GTR のストレートスピードかなり速いと思いますか？心配してますか？
はい、まあセクター3でぶっちぎれば1コーナーで抜かれることはないんで、頑張りたいと思います。
頑張ってください。So they're going to do their best after the incident yesterday. He's going to do also his best to defend from the GTR behind him.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy, is it? Because that GTR is so very strong down the main straight. And its weakest point is the bit where you can't really overtake, which is the final sector of the lap, particularly the end of stints. But second half of the race, he hands over to his championship-winning teammate, Akihiro Suzuki. He took a victory here in race #2 last year. And against Galar, I think I'd put my money heavily on the #1 machine. It was their only race victory last year, was Fuji in 2025 for the #1 machine. And that is basically what set them up for the championship. A good weekend in Suzuka allowed them eventually to take victory, even if Ponos Racing had a better weekend. It wasn't quite enough because they carried retirements from the early part of the season. Ukiyo Sasahara plugged into his Porsche already. Didn't really see any starring performance from Sasahara yesterday, finishing 5th position, although of course in Sugo they took victory in race #2. It was #1 that took race victory in #1 in race 1. But of course #1, as in Kawabata, who we've just spoken to, with a retirement yesterday with that contact with the Lamborghini. And it only takes one retirement to really derail your championship challenge. With only 4 weekends, 8 races on opportunities to score points. You look at Uematsu, who's got 2 third places and a win, and Motojima and Shibata at the Max Racing Mercedes that have 3 second places. It's tough to overhaul those drivers. The Lexus LFA heads off around the circuit. There's AWD Racing, their best result ever in Japan Cup. 3rd position yesterday in their Audi R8, which they're having a bit more help by from Cornes Racing this weekend. And we're going to go down to the back of the grid where we will find the Lamborghini, a 5-place grid penalty after contact yesterday.
They were in the lead, but with an unfortunate penalty, starting from the back here now. 昨日は本当に速いペースを見せてくれたんですけど、今日は何台抜きますか？
同じクラスが3台前にいるので、できれば全部抜けるといいなと思ってます。そして浜口さんに渡せればいいなと思ってます。
期待してます。頑張ってください。So he's going to do his best. There's 3 cars in the class in front of him. He's going to do his best to try to make it in front of them.
Mineki Okuda starting the all-AM Lamborghini. By the way, my favorite livery as well. It almost looks like the old Lotus Renault, black and gold with those little red details. They start 14th on the grid after being deemed as responsible for the contact with the number 1 into turn number 1. But it does sound as though Okuda more interested in winning the AM category than winning overall. And not so many AM category cars. The Ponos Racing 45 is in there. And of course the car guy Ferrari. And we have a new entry with 5-star with Team Dream Team, also in the AM category for this weekend. But in terms of championship, the fight really is between Ponos and Spirit of FFF Racing. And Hiroshi Hamaguchi, who is the second driver in that car, is so very strong. You know, qualified the car on the pole position yesterday. We really do expect to see that car at the sharp end in general, particularly in the second half of the race, when it will be the AM drivers in the car. A reminder that we'll have the pro drivers starting and the AM drivers taking over today. Motojima in the Max Racing Mercedes. Shares that car with Shibata. It'll be Shibata who'll take over at the second half of today's race. And Yuya Motojima, ex-Lamborghini Super GT driver for J-Lock in Super Taiku as well. And a reigning champion in Super GT's 300 category. Kazuki Ota, we spoke about the all-AM category car. That is a 488. Remember those? The previous iteration of the Ferrari GT3 machine. Car guy entering that car. And favourably balanced, I would say. Balanced performance, not punishing the fact it's an older car whatsoever. Humble camera with our Nissan. Another Nissan to watch from the inside. It will be Natsu Sakaguchi who will start the proceedings. And alongside him will be Shintaro Kawabata. Kenta Yamashita will start the McLaren in 3rd position behind him. And just a little bit slow getting the Bingo Racing Porsche sorted there. Now, sometimes there's a penalty for fiddling around with a car after a certain point. We are supposed to be moving at 55. I think you need to have your car working within 3 minutes. I'm pretty sure that's the regulation. So that could well be a penalty coming the way of Bingo Racing already. Race Control will be looking at that. But that will be highly disappointing for Ukyo Sasahara aboard that machine. 10 seconds before that last red light goes off on the gantry, and the cars will begin 2 formation laps, as is customary with SRO GT racing these days, allowing the drivers to get up to speed and allowing the temperatures to build in brakes and in tyres. Here we go then. Cars heading around this Fuji International Circuit. The formation lap underway. Yellow flag flying at the back of the field. Yeah, put it away. Everything's fine. And indeed, the marshal does. 3 GT3 cars at the back of the field, as you can see. A Porsche, a Mercedes and a Toyota. A big thanks to E-Needs Racing for entering for the first time. They shared my lift this morning into breakfast. And there is our leading cars. And a reminder, pro drivers in the cars. So we've got at least 7 cars with pro drivers at the front. And then we've got our 3 AM drivers at the back. Fukuzumi also with the penalty from yesterday, a 5-place grid drop for the 96 K-Tunes Ferrari. So that sits in the midst of the AM category, down on row number 6. So watch the 96 move through the pack in this first part of the race. There is Galar, keeping herself chilled. She's also got the chill outs underwear, fireproof underwear with little pipes running through it, which you can pump cold water through. And let's take a look at the grid then. E-Needs Racing on the GT4 AM pole position, ahead of the Mercedes. Pro-Am is the Porsche, because there is only the Porsche in Pro-Am in GT4. Thomas Racing 45, the GT3 AM pole, and the pole car is our Pro-Am pole. Kawabata lines up alongside Sakaguchi on row number 1. Uko Sasahara in his Porsche alongside Kenta Yamashita on row 2. An incredibly talented row 2 of different generations of Super GT drivers. Takubamba in 5th position. Jake Parsons in 6th. Yuya Motojima in 7th. And Shinichi Takagi will start the 97 that he shares with Betty Chen. Pole in AM for the 45 with Katsuki Ota for Kargai alongside. Then those with penalties. Niri Fukuzumi in the Lexus in 11th position with the 5-star with Dream Drive alongside him, and then Okura at the tail of the GT3 field. He is an AM driver. Surihiro will start in the Porsche. Kelvin Ho will start the Mercedes, and Tatsuya Usaki will start the Toyota. Cars over the line, which means they are now racing. But we are still under safety car conditions. The official clock starts on the start of the 2nd lap. And we do have this 2nd formation lap, this warm-up to get temperatures into the surface of the tyre, which then radiates into the tyre itself. And then warm up the brakes by riding your left foot on the brake pedal, building up the temperature on the brakes, and that then radiates into the wheel, which then also helps heat up the tyre from the other side. And in total, that brings up the pressure, and hopefully, therefore, going into turn number 1, you can attack as you wish to do so. Those pro drivers will have all that down. They'll know exactly what's going on. They'll have the numbers on the dashboard to know if they are up to temperature or up to pressure or not. They'll even be able to feel it. Kawabata and Sakaguchi. Now, the Nissan will be potentially able to bring its tyres up to temperature quicker because it is heavier, so it generates more energy. But I'm sure Kawabata would have worked that Ferrari hard on that lap, that opening 2 formation laps. We're rolling towards the start line. It's halfway along this 1 mile straight. So drivers need to be patient. There's a bit of a gap between Sasahara there and Takubamba. Decent spacing between all of our cars, to be fair. I'm surprised they're not better bunched up, because a really big advantage being given to Takubamba, who seems to be holding back a lot here. Look at the spacing between our rows. How very, very polite of them all. We come towards the line now and wait for those lights to turn off, and then we can go racing. Here we go. Takubamba wants to switch to the outside line, which he does. Uka Sasahara looks to the inside of the Nissan, which hasn't had a particularly good start. Now he switches to the outside to try and go around the outside of the Nissan. That might work better, and Bamba is round in the middle of the pack. Everyone hopefully will avoid him. Yes, they do, but that's created a big split in the field between the first four and the rest of the field. Attack from Sakaguchi, back down the inside, and Sasahara has to take to the runoff area to defend that one. That might not look very good for our race officials, as Yamashita decides to be a rally driver through turn number 5, puts 2 wheels on the dust. Frantic action from the first couple of cars, and would you believe that Takubamba at the tail of the field now. Further back, we've got an onboard from Yamasaki. He's not that far back, though. Good start, 6th position for our AM leader. Looking at the back of the Audi, here's the second 2 lots of cars coming through shot just now. And our onboard camera with Sakaguchi. Let's see how well he can gobble up the cars ahead onto the main straight. Safety car is called. And why is the safety car being called? There's no cars on circuit. I can only imagine that there may be some bits of car at turn number 1. Seems to be getting very dark out there. I don't think it is anywhere near as dark as the cameras are suggesting. It almost looks like dusk with the lights. And yeah, there has been some bits of carbon fiber left, presumably at turn number 1. And I am imagining that they are from the Ferrari. So did Takubamba get turned around by somebody else? Let's have a look at the replay here. Watching the 5th car, he goes to the outside, trying to go around the outside of the McLaren. Now he turns in. Oh yes, there was contact with the Audi, and in fact the Mercedes and Max Racing has gone into the back of the AWD Audi as well, so potentially damage both to the front and rear end of Jake Parsons there. Have a look from further back, from the 45, and he's going to have a nice door open. Yeah, look at the rear left corner there of the Audi, missing those dive planes that sit behind the rear wheel. At least it should be a pretty short safety car to get us go back racing, and that's a good thing for Takubamba. In the end, it wasn't Bamba's fault that he was facing the wrong direction. And now that pro driver, he'll be able to make quick work of the GT4 cars ahead of him, of which there are 3, and in theory should make quite quick work of the 3 AM drivers. Yamasaki lost a couple of positions at the end of that lap. We checked in with him in the middle of the lap and he was in 5th or 6th position, but by the time the safety car came out he was 8th, so presumably found himself on the wrong line going through the final sector and dropped behind the 2 K-Tunes run cars of Takagi in the 97 and Fukuzumi in the 96. We did see the Lexus in a slightly odd position. That is the hand. It's quite confusing. There was a massage going on for the wrist of Nagai, but it didn't look like it was. Such was the angle of the masseuse. It looked like it was his hand. So safety car in this lap. Kawabata controlling the field, and he's gone quite early. Sasahara up to 2nd, wasn't able to respond. And Sakaguchi even further back as we go back to green flag racing. Very, very close between Ferrari and Porsche. Should be good enough to get a nice slipstream down the main straight here. We've seen good speed from the Ferrari in GT World Challenge Asia, and perhaps not quite as good a speed as the Porsche is. Side by side at the back of shot. I think the Audi might be losing some positions. Lights off for Sasahara, who's managed to get into the lead of the race. And is this a problem for Kawabata? Around the outside comes Sakaguchi, and it doesn't look like the Ferrari's got any straight line speed whatsoever. Hasn't quite managed to make the move stick in the Galar Racing Nismo, but he had the inside line for 3, and now he slides up the inside. That's very, very weird. Almost as though the Ferrari missed a gear in the old school sort of H-box gearbox of being in fifth and trying to find sixth, and he can't. And now around the outside comes the McLaren. There's something wrong with the number one Cornez Racing champions from last year. Championship leaders coming into this weekend after their win in race number 1 of the season. And that's got to be, well, it's not concerning down in the garage, but it must be surely a little bit concerning. I wonder what the radio chatter is all about, because Kawabata from the lead of the race down to 4th position on one single lap, and Sasahara in his Porsche now starting to check out at the head of the field. Maybe Kawabata has found something. Maybe he was on a wrong fuel mix. You will change your fuel mix under safety car conditions. You will put it into safety car mode, and there's a bit of smoke coming off the Audi, so that will be where bodywork is rubbing on the rear left tyre, having had that contact from the Max Racing Mercedes behind. The Audi got on the anchors to try and not make contact with Taku Bamba, but unfortunately still did. And now Kawabata looks like he's up to speed once more. So what happened on lap number 1 after the safety car? That'll be a question for Hana down in pit lane once we get these first drivers out. But I wonder whether, as I said, 6 or 7 options of fuel mixture on the steering wheel of the Ferrari, and I wonder whether he left it in safety car mode. And so that would mean saving fuel, that would mean less horsepower, because it sort of just looked fine, but just not quite fast enough. And now up to speed. Lexus of Fukuzumi down the inside, the Toyota Gazoo Racing Works driver snatching that position from Jake Parsons, and up to 5th position for the grandfather Lexus. Well, racing the Corvette last time out in Sugo, but haven't quite managed to get that car to a position where they feel comfortable with it, so they bring out the old Lexus from last year's championship. And in the hands of Fukuzumi, wasn't very fast in yesterday's race. They had that penalty and retirement in the end, but it looks good in his hands today. May well make more progress. Now, how does the number 1 Ferrari look on this lap? Well, Fukuzumi's done the fastest lap of the race. The Ferrari itself only a couple of tenths of a second slower. So whatever the issue was, it's no longer, as the Lamborghini starts to make its move up through the field. And that's the battle for lead in AM. Okura up the inside of Yamasaki, and that is the lead then. Goes defensive as he's a bit slow out of turn number 1. And now all is fine. Okura, Yamasaki and Shirazaka running together on circuit. Those, big twitch there from the Lamborghini. An odd place to have a twitch. You're not really leaning on the car that much through there, but the Lamborghini wanted to get away from Okura. And that's going to invite Yamasaki an opportunity to get back past him. Drive through penalty for car number 27 for causing a collision. I think that's a little harsh, having watched turn number 1. Michael Vergis, the driver steward here. I think Jake Parsons did everything in his power not to hit the rear end of Taku Bamba. If we had an onboard camera on Taku's car, which we do not, I think you would have seen Bamba, as we see a change for 7th position there. I think you'd have seen Bamba just sweeping across the front of the Audi, and there's nowhere for the Audi to go. The Audi slams on the brakes, and that is why he got rear-ended by the Max Racing Mercedes. That Max Racing Mercedes up to 6th position now. Sorry, 7th position in the hands of Motojima. Takagi trying to find a way around the outside, champion from 2 years ago. And here's this replay of the start again. Just out of shot is where the actual contact happens. But the fact that he got rear-ended by the Mercedes, here we go again. Look, it's come from so far to his left, he would not have known that the Ferrari was going to try and claim the apex. And for sure, Taku Bamba would never have known that the Audi was there. Big headrests on these cars, really wrap around, and it really does restrict your vision behind you to simply what the mirrors show you. And there's big blind spots where you don't see anything. More of a racing incident for me, but I am not race control, and I'm not a driver steward. And they have decided it's the number 27 is well out. We're going to go on board with the number 9 now, the leader of the race. So often we hear chants of commentators to stop talking because the beauty of the engine note is such. And into the pits comes the 27 car for his drive-through penalty. It is absolutely a tough call for AWD. Their overall podium yesterday, best result ever. Obviously, they moved up from GT4 last year to GT3 this year. Actually, I don't think they were in GT4. They were in an old challenge car, weren't they? A Porsche Carrera Cup car. And then moving up to an old Audi in GT3, instantly getting themselves into the mix of things, although having unfortunate situations in Sugo. A podium yesterday, but it won't be a podium today unless something drastic happens, because that is a big penalty for the collision at turn number 1. I know I say it every race, but that is a mega livery. Mobil 1 sponsorship. White wheels on the front, blue wheels on the back. Just works so well. And if it's a fast livery, it's a fast car, right? And Sasahara absolutely being the fastest out there. Although on the last lap, Sakaguchi was a fractionally faster. The fastest lap of the race is to the Nissan GTR Nismo. Still nothing between our two leaders in GT3 AM. Okura towing Yamasaki around. There's just a second between the two of them. They are a little bit far back. There is definitely a gap between our GT3 AMs and our pros, but as you would expect, the weird one is Taku Bamba there in the 181. Again, as honestly, we've seen quite a few times so far in Taku Bamba's career. Very excited to have a man of his caliber in the championship, but he does not seem to make the progress, particularly when Bamba is in a poor position. Remember, he's on pole position for the early part of the qualifying session. He then came into the pits and put a new set of tyres on and didn't really go anywhere. But he's the 2011 Super GT 300 champion, sorry. But hasn't done quite as much Super GT as some of our drivers in the field. Driving for Toyota in his last year back in 2021. Battle for third position. McLaren, Ferrari and Lexus. Two brands that we don't see too much of across the GT World Challenge platform. McLaren, of course, very popular in Britain and in Europe, but elsewhere, those McLaren GT3 cars perhaps not as supported. And over the line they come for another lap. Sasahara leads. It's a gap of 1.6 seconds. 2 seconds back to Kenta Yamashita, who has his mirrors full of Kawabata and Fukuzumi. Then there's a 3-second gap to Motojima in the Mercedes, and 1.8 back to Takagi. Then you have the 6-second gap to our AM competitors, with Taku Bamba in the midst of those AM cars. trying a few lifts through turn number 3 on board with this Nismo. Doesn't quite potentially have the front end of that car. Surprised to hear him struggling quite so much, and on this last lap definitely lost a couple of tenths of a second in comparison to Sasahara. So listen to how confident he is on the throttle, particularly through this final couple of corners of the lap. This is where the Nissan struggles the most. Change of direction is its weakest point. Straight line speed its strongest. And the Lexus of Fukuzumi taking that slightly tighter line. There's almost an infinite different amount of options you can do through that final turn. And they all generally seem to have a pretty similar outcome. But what you need is maximum momentum out there onto that long main straight. A straight that used to continue where we are braking. It used to be another 300-400 meters before they would then plunge downhill into a banked right-hander. The original Fuji circuit. And, well, sports cars were racing there until the late 1980s, as Bamba does make a move down the inside of Yamasaki. So that's for 9th position. But kind of what you would expect. Good opportunity for Yamasaki here. He's got Taku Bamba ahead. Same car. So learn, watch. How is that car ahead able to go faster than me? And what can I do to replicate what he is doing? As soon as you have a faster car come past, there's only a couple of laps or a couple of corners of opportunity before it disappears into the distance, but it's invaluable learning for an AM driver. So rarely do they get a chance to follow. I know a couple of teams will have a second GT3 car, and they'll put the AM in one car, they'll put the Pro in the other, and they will do follow sessions. And it is literally, this is my line, do what I'm doing, brake where I'm braking. A little bit of understeer creeping into that 45. As he gets on the power, the rear end brings the car around. There again, slightly missing the apex. Does feel as though the 45 struggling with a, perhaps not quite a bite in the front end that he needs. Here's the GT4 leaders. On his own, Takeshi Suhiro. Of course, he is the pro driver in that Pro-Am lineup, so it's not a surprise that he is set off up the road. He is a works driver. And then the all-an lineup from E-Needs Racing, 2nd position, and that's good news because that means they are ahead by 7 seconds of Kelvin Ho and Maya Urido in their Mercedes. Not too much of a battle going on between those 3 cars right now as we're getting close to the pit window, where for the AM drivers, it doesn't matter so much when you pit. The pro drivers will be waiting until the end of the window at around 26-25 minutes. There is Kelvin Ho, the only non-Japanese driver in the field. He's from Hong Kong. Kelvin Ho Chun Ki, his full name. And that GT4 car with 4-litre turbo V8 engine, about to be caught by our leader. But good news for Sasahara. Number 1, Fuji, an easy-ish place to overtake. Number 2, the GT4 car's not locked in battle, as we saw in Sugo, so it'd be much, much easier for this Porsche to clear the traffic. All very calm and collected inside the 911 GT3 Evo. Closes up to the tail of the Mercedes through turn number 1, and easy pickings. Now Taku Bamba getting himself slowly but surely through this AM traffic. His next target is the leader in AM, Okura, but losing so much ground to the pros ahead of him. Of course, He's got to hand over to his AM, who is Norwick himself, of Norwick Racing. There he is in the graphic on the right-hand side. Looks like a sprightly wizard. Maybe we'll call him a wizard when he does some spectacular things in that 181 car in the second half of the race. So you're watching around the circuit, there just doesn't seem to be that big performance differential you would expect between a pro and an AM. Last lap for Sasahara, a 39.8, and Bamba is, well, he's in the 40s, so I suppose that's a good reflection on how well the AMs are doing. Lamborghini going wide through the penultimate turn, gives him the inside line, and Bamba now wants to cut back, so that's worked out really nicely, and he's going to have a lot more momentum onto the main straight here, and this should put this Ferrari up into 8th position. Bit of side draft as well for good measure. Seems to work really well down the main straight here. We saw Lauren Heinrich earlier on in the day using it to his advantage, but the Lamborghini getting really good straight line speed here, but unfortunately will be on the outside line coming into the first turn. And all Taku Bamba needs to do is make sure he's in the way as they get to that apex, and he slides his way through. And now 7.6 seconds the difference between himself and Takagi in the 97 as drivers down in pit lane begin to get themselves ready. Galar will be taking over the number 935, and actually with an advantage of just 1.8 seconds. Success penalties for Yamashita behind of 15 seconds. For Max Racing it will be 10. They are down in 6th position right now. And for AWD it'll be 5. So actually no success penalty for our leading 2 cars. They should, in theory, make the same pit stop time. Yamashita is going to drop back, in theory, behind Kawabata. I say in theory because this didn't work in at all well, the maths, in our GT World Challenge race. It all seemed very logical, and as soon as they came in and out the pits, it was, the rule book was completely ripped apart. Bingo Racing getting ready with Shinji Takai. He's had his arm massage, and now he is ready to take over from Ukyo Sesahara. Here comes Fukuzumi, having a look at the back end of Kawabata. Not quite close enough to make a move there. This Lexus having a much better run of things in this first part of race number 2. And all these pro drivers from 1st down to 8th likely not to pit. Yamasaki though has come into pit as an AM entry. Therefore, I'm surprised not to see Okura in, because Okura Hamaguchi definitely the stronger of the 2 drivers there. But obviously it's felt at Ponos Racing that Shujiku, the stronger driver between these 2. Yamasaki doing a nice job in the first part of the race. Of course, Ponos Racing Championship challengers in last year's Pro-Am Championship. And that was when Suzuki was sharing with Cozzolino as his pro. And Yamasaki was racing elsewhere, wasn't he? Trying to find his name. Can't find it on my entry list from last year. Over the line then. The pros ignore pit lane for another lap. Uematsu getting his helmet on, reminding himself of that pressure, of that win yesterday. And therefore that McLaren there with a 15-second disadvantage in pit lane. Of course, the number 1 retiring yesterday. So did the number 96. So both those cars will have pit stops at a similar pace, timed to 90 seconds as Sasahara and Sakaguchi. You can sort of ignore the fact that the 27 has got a penalty because they are so far back. A little bit of traffic here for the McLaren, and the worst possible time to catch that GT4 car. Cannot get away past through the chicane. Now he will slide up the inside here, but I think it'll be much, much easier for Kawabata to do so. And maybe the McLaren losing just a little bit of ground thanks to that traffic. Our leading GT4 machine slightly catches Fukuzumi in the wrong place as well. And then out onto the main straight for Motojima. Again, another lap goes by. Our pros in the cars. Still got 5 minutes remaining of that window. And actually, it does look as though Sakaguchi is able to keep Sasahara honest here. 1.6 gap is the gap, and it continues to stay that way. The Lamborghini, as I expected, coming into the pits to get Hamaguchi into the car. There's that umbilical cord that they will plug in to keep the drivers cool. Loads of different options to plug the driver in now, not just for communications when it comes to the radio or for water to drink, but also an air conditioning system to cool the driver from the inside. So not necessarily just a fan blowing some cold air onto the driver from the outside, but actually under the race suit. Air conditioning available in all but the Lamborghini to these drivers, but it does take away a little bit of the horsepower, so you tend not to want to use it, and it's not a crazy hot day. So I would imagine, where possible, it won't be on. Over the line for another time. Sakaguchi closing in once more on that Porsche, I think, right at the end of this stint. Maybe Sakaguchi doing a good job of preserving those tyres on the Nissan, but the gap down to 1.4 seconds. And perhaps at the end of this stint, he still has the tyre in a way that we saw in GT World Challenge Asia, not possible with that particular team, Gojigen. He's faster than Yamashita, Kawabata, and Fukuzumi behind. Tajima in the Mercedes there, the fastest car on that last lap, and catching up to the car, 3 cars ahead. But it does also have a success penalty from being second yesterday. Sujiku now aboard the local team, Ponas Racing, based just outside the gates here of the Fuji International Speedway. We are about 20 minutes away from Gotemba. If you have travelled Japan, you would have certainly been to Gotemba to come and visit Mount Fuji. Usually, on a sunny day, we can see Mount Fuji, but it feels very English today, the weather, much like it did yesterday. English but 25 degrees. Grey skies shrouding the circuit and making it impossible to see the largest mountain in Japan. Audi comes into the pits. Success penalty of 5 seconds after being third yesterday. The full service, but it's going to be a miserable second half of the race for Jesse Swimmer. Really not much to fight for, although he's sort of been still pretty much in the mid-pack of the AMs. So, but he himself and AM will be able to compare himself to those AM drivers, but may not be quite as easy pickings as it was before. Betty Chen getting herself ready, the big thumbs up. Remember, she caused a red flag last year when she was racing in GT4, missing her braking point into turn number 1 and managing to nearly vault the fence. Unfortunately, we didn't see much more of Betty after that, but great to have her back, and hopefully she's getting all of those nerves out of the way. She did admit to Hana, our pit reporter, that she was a little nervous, a little scared of what had happened last year, coming back here for the first time. Madame Glar, not her real name, but she's a big fan of the cockatoo. And so she will be taking over the team, the car that is her team, from Sakaguchi in second place. Big pressure on her shoulders because the gap is 1.3 seconds between Porsche and Nissan. In fact, look, it's less than that now. Over these last couple of laps, Sakaguchi has really been able to close in on Sasahara. It's going to be pit stops this time by. There's not enough time left before the window shuts to do another lap. And all of our pro cars are going to come in on the same lap. Now, the pressure to the teams. Make sure you get the timing correct. Already Sasahara has got rid of his drinks connection. Next job, get onto the speed limiter, slow the car down. Then make sure you are unfastening your belts. You must have at least one hand on the steering wheel as per regulation. The race direction having to emphasize that point this weekend. Too many drivers going down and taking both hands off the wheel. And such is the size of the Nissan GTR, they're actually able to get a whole mechanic into the passenger side to help. You see 2 feet in the Porsche, the mechanic there half in, half out. But at the GTR, the mechanic is fully inside the car. Much more comfortable position. And just helping to get those belts on and helping to attach all of the various umbilical cords needed, whether it be communication, drinks, or cooling. Changing the tyres, a new set of tyres, we would imagine, for Galar. And in theory, she will leave the pit lane at a very similar time to the Porsche. She does. No time lost, no time gained. Now she needs to be really sensible here, not get overexcited. She's got to have to bring those tyres up to temperature before she can start to push. And the temptation with the Porsche right in front of her would be to push too hard. Good work from Uko Sasahara there. Shinji Takai will certainly not feel the pressure. He's done this many, many times before. Has the experience. In the background, the 96 has jumped the #1. And that is not thanks to the success penalty. That's just thanks to a quick pit stop from K-Tunes. And Betty Chen, sorry, not Betty Chen, Suinaga finds himself ahead of Suzuki. Now, where did Uematsu come out? 88 car behind the 24, so that's a real shake-up. Biggest loser, but that was because he was the biggest winner yesterday. 6th position for the McLaren. In fact, he, no, that's right, 7th position, because he's behind Shibata, who also, of course, had a success penalty. That's promoted Betty Chen up to 5th, so watch out for the 97 machine. Lexus versus Ferrari. This for 3rd position. Up ahead, Takai getting the tyres up to temperature. Remember, we speculated that the Nissan would be easier to get up to temperature at the start of the race because of its weight. It can lollop onto each side, and a nice inside move there from Suzuki up to 3rd position for Corners Racing on the K-Tunes Lexus. Might try and do the same thing to the Nissan here. Oh, he's got so much more confidence in that Ferrari, and up 1 more position he goes. Galar looking to her right-hand side because she's got the Lexus there. Be careful. There's a slower car ahead. They should be able to clear that Toyota very, very easily. Although it doesn't look that easy, does it, in a straight line? And the Lexus moving around, clears the GT4 car. Galar Racing will do the same. And now this will be an interesting fight. Suinaga versus Galar, although she has dropped off the back of the Lexus. Suzuki suddenly finds himself 7 seconds back from Takai after one single lap. Still can't quite understand how that is possible. Must have been such a good first in and out lap. Galar a 3:19 last lap, whereas Suzuki doing a 3:12. That is why Galar drops to 4th position, but how has Takai got himself 7.6 seconds up the road? Right then. Head down for Suzuki. As Hamaguchi now in the Lamborghini, has Norik behind him. Hamaguchi still leading in GT3 AM and should be able to keep the Ferrari of Norik behind him. Some of the IDs not yet updated. Be interesting to see what Hamaguchi can do about the cars ahead. So he's past Norik. And waiting for Ponos Racing in 2nd position. And in 10th position overall for Chijiku. And then there's the gap to the Lamborghini and the 45 Ferrari behind. And they are a long way ahead. Absolutely no sign of the 66 Toyota. Here's our leader then, Takai, leading 4.9 seconds. Okay, so it's now updated, but Suzuki is taking absolutely chunks of time out of Takai. I look at my timing screen, it says 4.9 seconds. I look at the timing tower, it says 4. That is how much time Suzuki is taking out of Takai. As we have a quick look at our GT4 leader, unchallenged of course in GT4, and about to lap the AM Mercedes, so such is the pace. Now we've got AM drivers in the car, it won't be quite as big a differential. But Makino over the line. Ahead there is Orido, 3rd position in GT4. So, Takai leading the race. Sasahara pits in the pits with Hana.
A brilliant stint from you, Sasahara. You had a great lead to P2. Towards the end, the gap started to minimize a bit. Do you feel like the tire was pretty difficult to manage towards the end of your stint?
Yeah, I mean the second guy GTR was always super quick on the straight line, so I have to push like hell in the corners. So that's why maybe towards the end, a little bit difficult to manage the tire. But happy to be P3 to P1, which is a great stint. So happy for the teams.
What are you expecting from your teammate today?
Well, just finish the race. I mean, score as much as we can. If we can win, it's a bonus. So I hope, just finger crossed.
You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
In pit lane, the 96 Lexus slightly fast at the pit stop, and that's a 1 second stop and go penalty. Absolutely disastrous for K-Tunes Racing. I wondered how they quite got so high in the standings, and that explains that then. Suinaga dropping right to the tail of the field. A proper battle though going on at the head of the field, because Takai is nowhere near as strong in this Porsche as he was last year with the Bingo Racing, was it Corvette? They have run a Corvette. I think they probably were in a Ferrari, because everyone seemed to be in a Ferrari last year. Yes, they were in a 296. The same partnership in a 296 last year. And they fought right to the end of the championship with 2 victories to their name. 4th at the end of the championship because of a bad final result. But Takai losing chunks, 2 seconds a lap, pretty much on average, to the number 1 of Suzuki Needs to clear Maya Orido quickly here, but it feels almost inevitable, doesn't it? Can Takai get his elbows out and defend hard? Shibata will be coming at them as well in the Max Racing Mercedes. He's managed to move up ahead. And Uematsu making progress as well. There's movers and shakers everywhere. Takai shuts the door on Suzuki. No way through at turn number 5. 12 seconds back is the Max Racing Mercedes. Uematsu has got ahead of Galar. And Hamaguchi closing them down. He's just passed Betty Chen for 6th position into the chicane. No space there. Hard to get a move made through the chicane. But Takai opens the door to take the racing line. Can't quite shut the door at the apex. Now he needs to hold that Bingo Racing Porsche hard to the inside line. Just not let that Ferrari find a way through. Feels very, very inevitable as well. Holds the inside line at the final turn. Suzuki going for the switchback. He'll still have way more momentum down the main straight here. But there is an opportunity to slipstream back. There is an opportunity to defend for Takai. Sits in the middle of the road, providing that slipstream, but needs to be over to the right-hand side, and he can't really move now. The overlap is there, the Ferrari is down the inside, and the Ferrari is going to make this move stick into the braking zone at turn number 1. Even if Takai is later on the brakes, it's just not possible. And through Takai goes. Applause at Cornez Racing. Suzuki, Takai getting words of wisdom and calming advice from Uko Sasahara. Problem is, though, that was a really slow lap from both of them. A 1:45-second lap for Takai, and Shibata Uematsu taking chunks of time out of these two. Galar doing a 47 on the last lap, so she is going to soon be caught by Hamaguchi. And the Lamborghini moving up a position very, very shortly. We wait back to see the gap to Shibata. There is the Mercedes coming through shot. There is the McLaren getting through the traffic. And despite that success penalty, such is the talent of Uematsu, the gentleman driver in that car. He is closing Takai down. Bodes well for the championship, doesn't it? Such is the performance differential of all of our cars. Bingo Racing need to find a way to give more confidence to Takai. The Porsche is such a unique GT3 car to drive. Spoken before about how different all these GT3 cars are. I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? Some of them have got bigger engines than others. Some of them look very different to others. You've got, of course, the sleek Ferrari at the head of the field, the Porsche-shaped Porsche, the older shape of the Mercedes. If you've got a BMW in the field, you've effectively got a touring car. And yet they can all be competitive with each other. Little GT4 cars coming through the shot. And here is Galar, and Galar's got a Lamborghini hiding behind it. And I think Hamaguchi will maybe even have a think about going down the inside. No, decides against it, but it's not so flaming Galar today. A little bit of space there on the inside. No space there. It's a simmering Galar, I suppose. And Hamaguchi trying to find the safest place to come through. Of course, he's going to win the AM category. That's focus number 1. And around the outside at turn number 4 gives him the inside line for 5, and that Lamborghini now will scuttle up the road. It's a big old car for Galar to deal with, but she is just a massive fan of the GTR, so I'm sure she's got one on the road. Hana was telling me that her partner is also a big fan of GTRs, and it probably doesn't feel as heavy as it looks either. I always remember the drivers talking about the Bentley. Do you remember the big Bentley Continental GT3 car? Enormous machine, but apparently when you got inside it, it didn't feel big in the slightest. It didn't drive like a big car. It didn't feel heavy because they took some enormous amount of weight out of it. So it was just the shape was big. Suzuki leading, Takai second, but instantly Takai has found 2 seconds. So you remember we were talking earlier about follow the car in front. Shinji Takai is now able to not necessarily keep with Suzuki, but is 2 seconds faster already just simply by having a target to follow. And that means that it's going to be harder for Shibata and Uematsu to catch them. Listening into that wonderful engine whining around the circuit. The flat 6 4.2 litre. One of the few cars on our circuit not to have a turbo engine. But, I mean, that's what I mean about these cars all being very different. You've got a 6.2 litre V8 in the Mercedes. The Nissan actually only has a 3.8 turbo V6. So even though it's a big car, the engine's one of the smaller, because a Lexus has a Toyota 5.4. Let's go back down to Hana in the pits.
Here with the race leader, Kawabata 選手、スティントはどうでしたか？
はい、僕のスティントはちょっと、解釈ミスがあって順位を落としちゃったんですけれども、まあ、鈴木選手が取り返してくれたので、このまま見守りたいと思います。はい、それはどんなミスでしたか？ちょっといろいろあって今日走れているのも昨日ね、1位走行中に追突されちゃって、で、メカニックさんがね徹夜で車を直してくれたおかげでこうやって今走れているので、チームの皆さんに感謝です。期待してます。頑張ってください。ありがとうございます。
So he felt like he had a miss during his stint. Thankfully, Suzuki Senshu is in first place, so he's happy about that. Yesterday, they had an incident with the team fixing the car overnight. Everybody was working very hard, so hope to see them in first place on the podium.
So maybe a slight issue with that car on that first lap after the restart, suggesting that it had a misfire. I think that's what Hana was saying. But it has cleared itself up, and usually those misfires are more of an electrical gremlin than a mechanical gremlin. Once an electrical gremlin sets in, it's very hard for it to forget that it's got an electrical gremlin. You know, there's annoying problems where a car flashes on a warning light and you go, oh no, I've got a big problem with my engine. And usually it's just a sensor. All you need to do is tell the sensor it's all fine. Give the sensor a massage. No reset needed for the number one. 4 seconds to the good now over Takai. Takai able to get his head down and not lose too much time to Shibata and Uematsu behind. We got 4.7 seconds between the Porsche and the Mercedes, and 3.5 between the McLaren and the Mercedes. On board once again. Quite a lot of movement in the steering wheel there. Not really locking in like you would expect from certainly when you'd see. So that indicates that Takai is nervous with the car. He doesn't have full confidence. If you've got confidence, you lock in the steering wheel and you don't let it move around like that, whereas Takai sort of making micro adjustments all the time. In third position, Shibata. Still that 4-second gap right now, but it is coming down. That came down by 0.7 of a second on that last lap. And now Hamaguchi, now is he making up ground? 41.6 plays a 41.4, so he's making up ground on Takai, but he's equal to Uematsu and Shibata ahead of him. In terms of the other AMs, extending a nice advantage of 6.5 seconds over the Ponos Racing Ferrari behind. There is the Ponos Racing Ferrari. now with Sujiku aboard. And he's actually managed to pass Galar in the Nissan, which has actually settled into a better pace. The 144 from Galar, which is the same as what Norrick can do in his Ferrari behind. And actually Betty Chen losing time in her 97 Ferrari. Battle for third place in AM between the car guy 488 Ferrari, naturally aspirated, naturally breathing rather than being force-fed from a turbo. And he's just a little bit ahead of our newbies in their Mercedes. Number 25 with Takashi Sano aboard at the moment. Lovely livery on that car. And we welcome with open arms any teams and drivers. If you are listening or watching and you fancy joining the championship, it's actually open to GT3, GT4, GTC cars. So if you've got an old Lamborghini knocking around, then you can enter the Lamborghini Trofeo car or the Porsche Carrera Cup car. You can enter in GTC. You can also enter a GT2 car if you fancy it. I wonder whether we might see one of the manufacturers getting a GT2 car into this race. Second place in GT4 to the Toyota Supra. A little bit late on the brakes there for Enid, so missing out on touching the inside curb and the apex this time back, but they've got a good advantage over Maya Orido in her Mercedes. In fact, she is, or they are, 3 laps, well no, hang on, she is 3 laps back. So must have been an issue for the Mercedes at some point because they are a long way back off the back of that Toyota GR. The Audi 27 in 10th position for Jesse Strimina is ahead of the Lexus after those penalties. Penalty for the 27 for contact at turn number 1 and a penalty for a too fast pit stop for the 96. That puts them down in 10th and 11th, but they are both clearly taking chunks of time out of the cars ahead of them, with Betty Chen, Galar and Norrick all running slower. Little few 11s being laid down by Suzuki. Doesn't need to push that hard, although his last lap was slower than Takai and Shibata. Wonder whether this will come back to those guys. Let's see if this next lap that he was about to complete is slower again. Car guy Ferrari just being lapped, and that will be why on the last lap it was slower. Now coming down the main straight, side by side for second position. Takai on the inside, Shibata on the outside. There's still an overlap, and he's still holding on to Kai in the Porsche, and this should be okay for him. Got the car guy Ferrari still ahead of them, and he holds on for the moment. Takai has his racecraft dialed. They're still side by side. They nearly make a little bit of contact. The Porsche wants that inside line for turn number 3, but he's not going to have it and decides against diving down the inside because it is such a fast left-hand turn. It may not be over though if that car guy Ferrari gets in the way and the car guy Ferrari moves to the middle of the road. That's not exactly helpful for the Mercedes, but Shibata finds a way down the inside to take second position. And thankfully Takai moves through as well. Now I thought the last time we saw the Mercedes of Sano going down the main straight, we had almost, from the back shot, it looked like there was some kind of flame on the bottom underneath the car. Not in this Mercedes, you can see that that's all good, but maybe it was just a trick of the light. But if we get a rear shot down the main straight of the number 25, it looks as though perhaps it has something going on. All of that battling cost Shibata and Takai about 2.5 seconds to Suzuki as they come towards the line to establish the gap for another time. It is going to have grown quite heavily. And it's a last lap, a 42.0 for Suzuki. Shibata breaks the beam, a 42.8 and a 44.6 for Takai. On the flashes to tell the Toyota that he is possibly in the way. Takai at the moment on the podium, but there was a 3-second gap between himself and Uematsu, and he doesn't need to lose a lot of time being stuck behind a GT4 car. Gets that move done, and hopefully that is enough of a buffer. We might well be on the last lap here. I think Suzuki would have come across the line without the opportunity to complete another lap before the timer is over. Hasn't been confirmed by race control yet, but it will have been pretty tight, I would have imagined. Corners Racing having a hero or zero kind of a year. Victory in race number 1 in Sugo, but only 5th position in race number 2. A retirement yesterday, but a return to the top step of the podium beckons for our champions last year. Despite that little weird hiccup for Kawabata in the first part of the race, no, we are going to get another lap out of it. About 20 seconds to the good. Suzuki comes over the line now. And this is now going to be the last lap. So Suzuki over the line. Shibata over the line with 6.6 seconds. Takai 10 seconds back now, and Uematsu only less than 2 seconds between the Porsche and the McLaren. Maybe not quite enough time. Then you have the Lamborghini there, following that 25 Mercedes. And he's not going to be close enough, I'm afraid, to challenge for 4th position, but he will have a healthy win in the AM category. In fact, he's about to lap 2 of the AMs in front of him. Shijiku in the 45, a fair way back. Traffic to get through. Let's see if we can get that shot of the Mercedes and see if there's any. No, there isn't any fire. Maybe I was just imagining things. For 3rd position, Takai holding on here. Only a couple of corners left. Yes, they are the complicated ones, but they are the ones that is hard to overtake on. Kawabata with issues on the restart after that short safety car period, handing over to Suzuki, and Suzuki doing all the work when it comes to getting this Ferrari back to the front of the field. He comes out in the final turn, and it's going to be victory number 2 of the year for Corners Racing. And Kawabata and Suzuki can celebrate once more. A good day for Ferrari. Behind them, Shibata will come across the line for 2nd position. Kawabata thanking his team from the pit wall. Takai holds on for 3rd, ahead of Uematsu. And actually, after winning in Suzuka, that is their 2nd best result of the year. Hamaguchi comes over the line in the Lamborghini to win his class, as you would have come to expect. And that will surely put them back up to the head of the AM Cup, ahead of Corners Racing, taking 2 victories in Suzuka. But the retirement's going to hurt that number 19 from yesterday, because in the end, finishing and getting some points, really, really important. Our GT4 winner from race 1 in Sugo, but not race 2, because they did have a Pro-Am car in race 2 to compete against. And once again, going to take the victory in the Pro-Am Cup and victory in GT4 generally, which makes sense because the other 2 cars are AM Cups cars. And a big thanks to Zengo RS Garage with Sunrise Boulevard. Towards the line they come, and victory number 3 of the year for them in GT4, with the Lexus following over the finishing line. And that's pretty much all of our cars taking the checkered flag. Actually, there's one car missing. Galar has not finished the race. She's down at turn number 4, I think, on the inside line. 5, sorry. At the hairpin there, and there she is. Now she gets going again, but that has cost her 4 positions on the last lap. I wonder if that was a spin. It's taken her a huge amount of time to get back going again, and that is a great disappointment for the fan favourite. Entertaining racing from our Japan Cup. Our midpoint of the season, after 2 races in Sugo, 2 races in Fuji, and Galar has forgotten where she is on the circuit, hasn't she? She's just maybe been paying too much attention to Norwich behind, and then she has not got back into neutral, so that's why it's taken her a long time to get back going again. And yeah, I think she's probably looking at his mirrors, or looking in her mirrors at Norwich trying to attack her, and just missed her braking point. And then the circuit has turned too hard. The speed was good, the corner was too tight. Is always a good excuse in motor racing. No such problems for Suzuki and Kawabata, and particular smile for Suzuki because he was one of the strongest AMs out there in the second part of the race. And despite that little hiccup from Kawabata, they have managed to take the victory. And the defense of the championship continues for Cornez Racing. I like how some of the drivers get hugs and the others get handshakes. Uki Sasahara comes straight over to congratulate his rivals. And a good little debrief going on between highly respected individuals. We were talking with Hana about the way that they go racing here, and it is so respectful. If you cause an incident, you go straight over to that garage at the end of the day and say, I'm sorry, and apologise and shake the hands of the drivers. It doesn't happen in Europe when you have an accident. You might have to do it on social media when you get home, but over here, Japanese culture seeping into Japanese motorsport, and therefore the racing is clean and fair as well.
Well done. Great TV. Well done.
Yes, Benjamin, great TV. Thank you very much. Great entertainment. I'm guessing that was a compliment to us as well. And the championship coordinator and championship manager doing the rounds and congratulating our top 3. Another second position for Max Racing. They're going to get really annoyed with second spot. They're going to want a win. Number 1 has that today.
I'm here with our race winners. 優勝おめでとうございます。今日のスティント一番良かったところはどこでしたか？
川端君のセーフティー掛けじゃないですかね。それでチームみんながちょっと不安になった分があったんですけど、それが逆にパーになりました。はい、
今の気持ちはどうですか？
鈴木さんありがとうございます。あと昨日優勝を目前になんていうんですか、クラッシュがあって、追突されて車が壊れてしまったんで、夜中までかかって直してくれたメカニックの皆さんに感謝です。ありがとうございます。
すごくいいチームワークを見ました。おめでとうございます。So they're very happy with the result. The car obviously had an incident yesterday, and then today their team last night were able to fix it, and now they're in first place.
Not giving away anything on how they lost 4 positions on the restart, though. Doesn't matter now. They've got that number 1 back on the top step of the podium. And we're going to go and talk to Max Racing, who have their 4th second place of the season. Would you believe it?
Here with P2. P2 おめでとうございます。満足してますか？
ありがとうございます。まあそうですね。週末一度は勝ちたいと思ってたんですけど、まず2位で、多分チャンピオンシップもリードできてると思うんで、次に向けてまた頑張ります。
レースの一番難しいところはどこでしたか？レースの一番難しいところ。
このレースのフォーマットもあって、前のレース、昨日のレース2位だったんですけど、でサクセスペナルティが10秒ついて、でその状態で勝つってやっぱりすごく難しいんですね。で私たちずっと開幕戦から2位なので、次こそ優勝して、シリーズチャンピオン取れるように全力で臨みたいと思ってます。
おめでとうございます。So they don't feel like they're super happy with the result. Obviously, with the championship in the middle, they want to be winning, so they're going to do their best for the next race.
Consistency is key, though, and they've got a second, a second, a second, a second. So they might even find themselves at the head of the standings. They were only 1 point behind Uematsu coming into today, and Uematsu finishes 2 places back from them. Maybe Bingo Racing will jump them. Maybe Corners Racing will jump them. I don't think Corners Racing will jump them, to be honest, because they were so far back, 20 points back off the lead. So I think Max Racing will be at the head of the championship at the end of this one. Let's go back down to Hana, who has more.
クラス優勝おめでとうございます。どこが一番難しかったですか？
そうですね、僕は最後の方からスタートだったので、なるべくの多くの台数を抜こうと思ってたんですけど、結構最初の方工作してたので、あそこをうまく抜けててよかったなと思ってます。
このポジションで満足してますか？
はい、昨日みんなに迷惑かけたんで、今日1位で終われて本当に良かったです。満足です。
おめでとうございます。So they felt happy with the result today. They were able to do exactly what they wanted to do to get back to P1 in the class.
And a great speed from that Lamborghini as well, I have to say. It's an attractive looking car. It's run by FFF Racing, and they ended up 5th overall. Japan Cup race number 2 from Fuji, race number 4 of the championship, and pro drivers starting around a gloomy day at the Fuji International Speedway. A good start from Corners Racing, and being pursued into turn number 1 from Galar Racing, with Ukyo Sesahara in the Porsche around the outside as the Norwich Racing Ferrari turned into a spin. Good couple of corners side by side. We had a safety car period to retrieve a couple of bits of carbon fibre from down at turn 1, and when we went to restart, Corners Racing went backwards, lost 1 position before turn 1 and lost a couple of positions around the first part of the lap. A curious issue with the Ferrari that we didn't really get to the bottom of, but it didn't matter much come the end of the race. Sasahara trying to create a gap ahead of Sakaguchi. But Sakaguchi kept him honest in the Nissan. Takubamba then had to get himself up through the field, having spun to the very back. It was him spun around by the 27 Audi, which was given a penalty. No safety car periods during the stops, and so all the pro drivers coming in at the same time to be serviced and hand over to their AMs. Number 9 out ahead of 935. The 96 was deemed to have pitted a little too fast, so it got a drive-through penalty, the Lexus. And then came Suzuki in the number 1. Clearly the fastest AM driver out on circuit. Found a slither of space down the inside to take the lead of the race at turn number 1, and then headed off into the distance to try and claim their 2nd victory of the year. in the number 9, Takai, ended up losing another position to Max Racing's Mercedes, with Shibata sliding up the inside, but that's where the 9 would stay. Suzuki extending his advantage to 5.7 at the head of the field and taking victory number 2 of the year. Shibata, a 4th second position of the year, which should put them at the head of the standings. And so the podium ceremonies. Bingo Racing with their Porsche this year. They obviously raced a Ferrari last year and a Corvette before that. A new challenge for particularly the AM driver. And still something that Shinji Takai, I would say, is perhaps slightly struggling with. Max Racing second and Corners Racing on the top step of the podium. The chairman of Fuji International Speedway presenting the trophies once more, as he did yesterday. And Samurai soldiers up on the podium as well. Fukushima-san handing over our P1s, a second P1 trophy of the year to Corners Racing. They only got 1 win last year, so already it looks better. Remember, they won the championship last year, but that was because they didn't retire. And they did retire already this year with that contact in race number 1. A disappointing result in Suzuka for Bingo Racing last year was how they ended up at the very tail of the field. And let the champagne spray on the podium. They all seem a bit tired, to be honest. Not a huge amount of energy there. There's always one. Here are the overall results then. Our 4 class-winning cars. Corners Racing, Spirit of FFF Racing, Zengo RS Garage with Sunrise Boulevard and E-Needs Racing. A second GT4 victory for them. And the gap is 5.7 seconds at the head of the field between Corners and Max Racing. Bingo with LM Course in 3rd spot, but only a second ahead of the McLaren by the end. 22 seconds back was the leading AM car that had a decent chunky advantage over Corners Racing. Norrick in 7th position, AWD recovering to 8th after a drive-through. The Ferrari ahead of the Lexus in the end in 9th and 10th. And then Galar Racing spinning on the final lap in 11th spot. The GT3 AM podium then. There is the locals. The Battle Cats. Google the Battle Cats on the back of the suits. Oh dear, the champagne getting overexcited itself on the podium. Car Guy Racing, great to have them back. Legendary logo and name in motorsport, and on the 3rd step of the podium, a welcome back, a welcome return. As the podium ceremonies continue here at Fuji, I hope you've enjoyed the coverage of Japan Cup here at Fuji. Don't forget, we're coming back at Okayama at the end of August for another SRO Power Tour event, and they'll finish their season in Suzuka in the middle of September. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye for now. young drivers getting a little bit more busy with the fizzy than pro drivers a little bit earlier on. This is better, bit more energy. Happy days. Yorikatsu getting himself absolutely covered there. I don't know why they all felt the need to cover him in fizz, but Polars Racing, a busy team, racing across the different categories here in Japan. And wonderful to have one of the best known names in motorsport with us in SRO world. The overall standings then after 4 rounds, and it is Max Racing the lead by 5 points over the McLaren. Another 5-point difference to Bingo Racing. And then Cornez Racing, despite 2 victories, 4th position. And that is where the retirement is really gonna hurt them. They are only, though, 12 points back off the leads. The final podium then for our GT4 competitors. Enid's getting a 2nd spot overall, a 1st in GT4 AM. And the winners, Porsche Cayman GT4 RS CS. And the Sunrise Boulevard guys getting themselves ready with the champagne there. Got to be careful though, it's probably been refrigerated. Now it's outside in the heat. That's where it starts to expand, and that's where those corks go off on their own. The amount of planning and thought about champagne bottles on podiums is enormous. Do you take the foil off? Do you take the metal cradle off? Do you just loosen it? If you take it off completely, then the cork might go off on its own. But if you leave it too tight, then it's a bit faffy for the drivers to sit there and do all the wiring before going spraying. Have a think. What would you do? There's your GT4 podium then. And hopefully in Okayama we see a few more GT4 cars. A great category to enter into SRO racing. And there's just not enough then. Smiley faces around podium. There goes the wire. Yeah, see, it's fiddly. Mayorito has definitely been taught by Dad how to do it. And well done to all of our top 4. They're the standings in GT4 with Sengo RS Garage leading the way. A healthy advantage over Kelvin Ho and Mayor Orido, with Oyama and Kunimoto missing this weekend, but still 3rd in GT4 standings. Thank you very much for joining us here in Fuji. We are done with racing here. Next GT3 racing next weekend from Mizano, the European Series, and we'll be back in Okayama at the end of August. We'll see you then.